All right. Welcome, everybody. Thank you so much for joining us. We are so excited to have you at our webinar for the New York City to Philadelphia Ride 2021 for benefiting the East Coast Greenway Alliance. We are even more excited to get you outside together safely, comfortably, joyfully on August 28th and 29th, riding the Greenway from New York City to Philadelphia. Tonight, we're going to talk a little bit about the ride, but we're also going to talk about what this money is going towards, what these funds are helping create. And I'm one of your hosts tonight, Daniel Pascal. I'm the Mid-Atlantic Regional Manager for the East Coast Greenway Alliance, coming to you from a cabin up in the Adirondacks, but I'm actually based in Philadelphia, covering the Mid-Atlantic region. And I will be joined tonight by Global Impact Productions, who is managing this ride, making sure that it functions well and that people have the support they need, the navigation they need, and we will get to them shortly. So first, about the East Coast Greenway. The New York City to Philadelphia ride is the first of its kind, raising funds for this grand vision. This is the East Coast Greenway, going from Maine, 3,000 miles, all the way down to Key West, Florida. And that's connecting 15 states, District of Columbia, 450 communities, big cities, small towns. And we are happy to say that over 50 million rides, walks, and runs occurred over the last year, making us the most popular park in America. We're hoping to only increase that as we can connect more of these trails, open spaces, public spaces for all to access. So extremely exciting vision that not only spans geographically a great space, but incredible amount of time dating back to the heritage of this land that was originally inhabited by Indigenous Native Americans. The area that we will be biking through is the ancestral homeland of the Lenni Lenape people for over 10,000 years, between what's now New York City, Philadelphia, the Hudson Valley to the Delaware Valley. We actually had this deerskin painting commissioned by the East Coast Greenway Alliance. Karen Harley, Holiwa Saponi Indian, shows you all the different tribes along the East Coast. So we are tapping into the heritage of this land well before all the borders, all the towns, all the cities. So we want to really acknowledge that and think about that as we pass through this region. And we are connecting again back to that land by linking together little trails, little pieces of beloved park spaces, little pathways. The East Coast Greenway is 3,000 miles long, and currently about a third of it's done. So you can see this sort of the X-ray vision showing you the pieces that are done. There are some longer stretches, there are some short ones, but we are linking them together. So eventually the goal is to have this one solid line, one network of trails up and down the entire coast. And we do this by working together with partners. The East Coast Greenway Alliance is headquartered in Durham, North Carolina, but we are spread out. We have coordinators and managers of different regions of the East Coast Greenway up and down the coast. Currently 6 regional staff, but soon to grow to help advocate, plan, and steward the Greenway. And with your help, we've now raised over $100,000, which is incredible. And we are increasing our team capacity to raise the awareness of the Greenway, elevate our partners, work together, build relationships with these community networks, and accelerate the connectivity of this grand vision for the benefit of everyone traveling to it, living along it, and using it every day. And in the Mid-Atlantic region, you might know some of these trails already, some of which we'll be riding in August. In New York, we have the great trails along the Mosholu and Pelham Bay Greenways, the Bronx River Greenway, Hudson River Greenway through Manhattan. On the New Jersey side, on the other side of the Hudson, the Walkway, a number of county trails through Union County, the Middlesex Greenway, Old Rail to Trail, the historic DNR Canal, which will feature heavily in our ride, and then into Pennsylvania along the DNL Canal, towpath, the Delaware River Trail, and it goes on and on south of our ride, but you get the picture that these are some of the best that our region has to offer. And we're hoping that with your support, we can link those final dots together. And here are some of those visuals of what it looks like on the ground. You might already be familiar with these. Maybe you ride them every day. The Hudson River Greenway, we're finding space between, built right-of-ways with roads along historic towpaths where mules used to go and horses might still. along old railroad right-of-ways. This is the K&T Trail along the Delaware River Trail in Northeast Philly. So you can get the idea that we are threading all types of terrains, all types of settings together to connect all types of communities. And next slide, please. Okay, thank you. And one back. The idea, of course, though, is that it's more than just build it and they will come. We really have found that it's plan it together, build it together, and enjoy it together, and everyone will be there. Because we need to make sure that people feel welcome in these spaces. This corridor especially, but up and down the whole East Coast Greenway, has had historic barriers separating people, separating access to public health outcomes and to improve quality of life through recreation, being able to affordably walk or bike to work. So we were working together with our partners to really dig in, learn from the neighborhoods that we connect and figure out how to make these equitable spaces for all. And these are some of the reports that we have on our site. And of course, more than the trails, there are people behind all of these. So building every trail are relationships that we need to build, and connecting with our neighbors, learning from folks, learning from the neighborhood's needs, engaging with people out on rides, doing walk audits, celebrating ribbon cuttings, planning with folks, getting into every room, whether physical or digital, and making it happen, over the long term. This is sort of the behind the scenes work. A lot of it gets into the weeds, but it's critical for the long-term plan that creates these short-term success and these opportunities. So this is incredibly important that the funds support this work. And here's an example. We are balancing today's adventures with tomorrow's vision, meaning that over time, we are connecting. If you see the path that goes to the north, along the Essex-Hudson Greenway coming out of Manhattan and Jersey City, this is the envisioned Greenway route. Eventually, we will connect all of this through all these parks, these beautiful spaces, through Newark, all the way through Union County. But in the meantime, we want to have access to that. We want people to enjoy the ability to get from New York City through Jersey, through Staten Island, on out. And thankfully, we have two brilliant new bridges that have paths that are fully separated, very safe. And that is sort of the reason why you end up sometimes with a separate path or separate route from our envisioned route. It takes a little bit of communication around this, but in the meantime, you can also enjoy both sides of it. And we have more information on our state pages if you go to the URL down at the bottom there. And of course, that Essex-Hudson I mentioned, these are major projects that it takes a village, it takes all the villages to create. So we're supporting our partners up in North Jersey, creating a momentum and support around the Essex-Hudson Greenway. We're trying to basically raise awareness that greenways are infrastructure. So the Greenway stimulus, there's been some articles recently. We're trying to get federal funding for these trails so that we can build more of them, bring them to more people's doorsteps, have more people have access to those outcomes that we talked about, improve quality of life. And we're sharing the best of what the Greenway has to offer currently. If you go to our Greenway itinerary and trips section of our website, there's a lot of these that are already out there waiting to have visitors that people might not know about currently. And this is some of the nitty gritty. This is, it's not always scenic trails or river trails that you might be improving and access along an arterial road, a suburban style roadway that has no sidewalk. And suddenly with a Greenway, it's a lot more safe, it's a lot more comfortable, and it might get you to a somewhere scenic. This is the Delaware River Heritage Trail, a new segment just built in Burlington County. So check out some of those stories also on our website. Then also we have to acknowledge, and not only acknowledge, but leverage the power of having not just the East Coast Greenway plan through here, but a multitude of trails that are connecting every part of the regions that we connect through. So in the greater Philadelphia area, there's the circuit trails. And this is an example that shows the East Coast Greenway really as the anchor, as the trunk trail connecting folks through the region that we're building off of these other branches. So you can go up to Allentown, you can get out to Reading, all the way to Westchester and down to Delaware, that it doesn't matter if you're not on the East Coast Greenway, but that you can ride and be a part of this vision collectively as the whole region. And wanted to also show off, this might take a second to load because there's so many. This is really done through a patchwork effort that creates this quilt, this beautiful, this is the demonstration, the visual demonstration of who is behind so many of these trails. And it's not just nonprofits, it's the public sector, it's the planners, it's the, the private firms, it's the private citizens, it's the friends of groups, it's just the local enthusiasts, it's the people that are riding it and might not even know they're on it. It takes everyone to recognize the power of creating these trails because they are at the human scale, but it takes this extra effort to help people see that it goes beyond this local region. And finally, I want to just make a pitch to get out and get involved with the Greenway beyond this ride. Subscribe to our newsletter, become a member if you haven't already, advocate, volunteer, look for those trails that are being built in your region, reach out to us. You can see Bruce Donald is our New Jersey, New York, and Connecticut coordinator, manager, and his email is bruce@greenway.org. I'm at daniel@greenway.org, and those asterisks are, we are going to be able to add one more staff position because of this ride. So we'll have someone focused just on New York and New Jersey. Bruce will shift up to Connecticut, take more of Massachusetts. We can slowly add more capacity, but the more we hear from you, the more we're engaging with the folks that are on the ground, the better. And one opportunity is this fall, the New Jersey Trails and Greenway Summit, which is the first of its kind, and an exciting opportunity to, take this one step further, see what else is out there, see what opportunities there are to get involved in your community. I think we will switch over to previewing the route. Finally, what you came for. The corridor from New York City to Philly is a fantastic set of trails, of on-road riding, of suburban, urban, a little bit of scenic, almost feels like rural spaces. The first day, we're going from New York to Princeton. Technically, it's Liberty State Park in Jersey City, looking face first at Manhattan. We'll ride down basically across some of these bridges I talked about, and on the DNR Canal, all the way to Princeton, the Family YMCA. Day 2, it's a little bit shorter from the YMCA through lower southeast Pennsylvania, lower Bucks County, through northeast Philadelphia, all the way to Penn Treaty Park, beautiful Delaware River waterfront. Nice 2 days, hopefully not too challenging. We'll kind of take you through some of the pictures that gives you a sense of what these different parts look like. So starting out on the first day, Liberty State Park, that shot in the top left. This is a nice roadway through the park, very easygoing, beautiful scenery in the background. If you have time beforehand, take a look around. It's an incredible park right next to New York City and Liberty, Statue of Liberty. And again, the Bayonne and Goethals bridges are these incredible pieces of infrastructure to get us over those hurdles of those riverways, the waterways, to get you to Staten Island, back into Jersey. A lot of really nice suburban community riding, some 25-mile-per-hour roads, 30-mile-per-hour roads. There are some stretches, though, that tick up into those a little bit more stressful riding situations. So we want to make sure that people know this ahead of time. We want to make sure that folks are confident in riding in traffic. We will have support, and we are working with police and with volunteers to ensure that your ride is safe, but there are stretches where you have to be comfortable riding in traffic. But the bulk of it, thankfully, are on lower stress, scenic, on-road pieces and trails. So going on to later in day 1, we will get through some of those Union County parks I mentioned before, Roosevelt Park. The Middlesex Greenway is a beautiful rail trail being built out there. And some on-road stretches, again, nice wide shoulders or soon to be painted ones. But again, back to the DNR Canal towpath. This is the bulk of the New York to Philly ride. This is a beautiful trail. This is a ride, not a race. So folks should be aware that you might be going a little bit slower on this. It's a crushed stone aggregate. It does change a little bit depending on which part you're on. There are some spillways in the bottom right there. So note that some parts you'll have to get off your bike, walk a little bit because it does get a little cobblestoney. There are some mixed terrain, but the bulk of it is really nice riding. And I think in the next photo, we'll kind of get a sense of some of that terrain surface. If it's rained recently, it might have some puddles. You can avoid those. It might get a little bumpy in parts. You can avoid those. If folks are really just not having the natural surface riding, there is an alternate on-road route, and we'll talk about that a little bit more, that parallels the canal. It doesn't always have, the widest of shoulders, so this is, again, more for confident riders, but it will get you down into Princeton, in the top right there, some nice on-street, low-stress riding. At the YMCA is where we'll be hosting sort of evening event activities. Some folks will be camping, and then we'll offer everything that Princeton has to offer. Lovely town, and if folks haven't gotten themselves to there yet, they're in for a treat to have dinner out in the city. And I believe the next into day 2, again, more riding on the canal. It's idyllic. It's hard to get over it when you're riding it. There are some crossings, though, that aren't as idyllic, but we will have, again, safety patrols there for helping riders get across. That right there is Whitehead Road. This is a reminder of why we're raising funds, why we're trying to create awareness that safety is a key issue along the East Coast Greenway and along all trails and along all of the network across this region. You'll go through Trenton on some nice bike lanes. There's the Battle Monument, cross over into Pennsylvania over the Trenton Makes Bridge, the Lower Trenton Bridge over the Delaware River, onto the DNL Trail, another canal towpath, about 10 miles of that, crushed stone, again, nice smooth riding. If you have hybrid tires, then you're good. And then through Bucks County, there's a little bit of on-road. The shoulder gets a little tight, but it is scenic. It'll be a Sunday morning, so hopefully not as stressful, not as trafficked as a rush hour. And next, day 2, part 2, getting into Northeast Philly, we will have some beautiful trails waiting for you along the Delaware River Trail. That's from the Pennypack on the Delaware Park on the top left. There are lots of bike lanes. There's lots of development through Northeast Philly, so it is urban riding, but there is space throughout almost the entire extent of the on-road sections in Northeast Philly, but always good to be cautious and be aware. And then there's a lot of renewed spaces around old and currently operating industrial properties. So it creates a sort of a viewpoint of a city that you might not have ever seen. That's the Port Richmond Trail on the top right. And then we'll be landing in Penn Treaty Park along the Delaware River Trail on the bottom 2 there. And I think we've got some route signage. Want to make sure that folks are looking out for these signs. You can see the arrow, the bright riders turn ahead. If you miss it, we will also have signs. If you've missed the turn, to make sure you double back and find that right turn. We'll have people on the route throughout the ride and throughout the days to help folks find this. There's lots more information that we'll get into in the ride packets that we'll be indicating ahead. And then wanted to also give a shout out to exploring before and after the ride. So Liberty State Park has an incredible promenade. We won't be riding on that promenade that day. There is another event, a walk that's happening on the promenade, but we do encourage people in the days before to see the views from Liberty State Park or just get there extra early. It's worth just taking a quick spin over there. It's a beautiful landscape view. And then again, in Philadelphia, we'll be encouraging people to continue their ride to the Schuylkill Banks. We set up along the Delaware River Trail for the spatial needs of the ride and the closing ceremony, but we want to encourage people to see the Schuylkill River Trail because that is also an incredible trail for the East Coast Greenway and the region. And now I'll hand it over to Eric with more details on the daily timeline.
Thanks, Daniel.
No problem.
Hi, everybody, riders, crew, volunteers. We've got a great turnout tonight. And so first of all, just thank you all for tuning in. My name is Eric Epstein. I'm the president of Global Impact Productions. And we are the folks who have the great honor of being able to produce this inaugural ride on behalf of the East Coast Greenway Alliance. So delighted you're all here, and we're thrilled to be here ourselves. I am going to run you through a timeline for the event weekend, and then I'm going to talk about all the different travel options that are available to you. It is a ton of information, but if you miss any of it, you'll be able to read up on most of it on the ride website as well, and we are always available to answer questions between now and the 28th of August. So let's start with the timeline. On Friday, August the 27th, the day before the ride starts, we're going to offer an early check-in in Manhattan. Our sponsor, REI, has generously offered their Soho store to us, or a portion of it, to host an early check-in. So for anyone who lives or works in New York City, or if you're arriving a day ahead, this is a great opportunity to get all of your check-in duties out of the way. If you're able to come to the early check-in, please do so. It's going to save you a big step on Saturday morning if you can. You can pick up your registration packet, which will have in it, among other things, a luggage tag to put on your bag, a rider number to attach to your bike. Those are going to be easier for you to do on Friday from the comfort of your hotel room or your apartment. So if you have the time, early check-in. The Greenway folks are also looking at putting on a casual ride in Manhattan that afternoon to show off part of the Hudson River Greenway in Manhattan. So keep your eyes open for more details on that. That'll be coming up later. Meanwhile, down in Philadelphia, simultaneously, we're going to be offering pre-ride bike shipping. So if you live in the greater Philadelphia area, this is a great way to get your bike up north. And I'll talk a little bit more about the details of how bike shipping will work in a few minutes. Next slide, please. On Saturday, the 28th of August, that's our opening day, there are two times that everyone needs to know about. The first is 7 a.m. That's when our festival site opens for check-in at Liberty State Park. So what happens at check-in? A whole bunch of things. Number one, you'll get your registration packet, which has various documentation that you'll need for the event. Second, you'll put your luggage tag on your gear bag and on your tent if you're camping, and you'll drop your gear off for the day at that point. Number three, you'll attach a rider number to your bike. Number four, if you haven't previously filled out your medical form, the medical form was included in the the pre-ride guide. If you haven't previously filled out your medical form, or if our medical team has a question for you about it, you'll get to chat with them. Number five, breakfast. We'll have a light breakfast for you. Sixth, some of our Greenway's partner organizations are going to be there for you to visit and learn about. And then seventh, you'll get ready for the opening ceremony. If you did early check-in on Friday, then you can sleep in a bit. You don't need to be there right at 7 if that's the case, but do please plan to arrive by 7:45 so that you have time to drop off your bag and eat a bite of breakfast before the opening ceremony. Okay, second time you need to know about is 8:30 a.m. That's the opening ceremony. It's going to be stunning. As Daniel mentioned, a panoramic backdrop of Manhattan as our speakers inspire you for the ride ahead. The ride itself will begin at 9 a.m. And again, as Daniel mentioned, this is a ride. It's not a race, and we're giving you lots of time to complete the day. You're going to have about 9.5 hours to ride the 63 miles. On your first day, there will be 4 rest stops. We call them oases that are stocked with water and Gatorade and snacks. Often they'll also feature local Greenway partners, and they can teach you more about the local area that you're riding through, as well as Greenway projects that may be underway or planned. One of our oases will be your lunch stop, and they're a bit heartier and the entertainment a bit grander. In the afternoon is when the route splits in two. You heard Daniel talking about how we'll have the official Greenway route, which is the trail route, and then we'll also have an ancillary on-road route. So for those with appropriate bikes, we encourage you to take the trail route because it is the official Greenway. You'll definitely appreciate where your fundraising is going to be put to work because the terrain can be a bit rough in some places. Now, for those of you who have more delicate bikes, we do have the alternate on-road route as well. And one thing I want you to know is that midway through the afternoon, those two routes will converge at an oasis. And so if you change your mind, if you've, for instance, been riding on the trail and it's a bit rougher than you really wanted to, you can switch to the on-road route, or vice versa. If you've been riding the road and you're like, you know what, I want to try this trail, you can do that. You have until 6:30 to complete the day's route. And then everyone will check in at the Princeton YMCA, regardless of where you're spending the night. That's how we know that you're safely home. And also, that's where your gear bag is going to be. So here's what happens next after you check in. If you're a premium rider, you'll stop off at our hospitality desk at the Y and get instructions on how to get to your room. Premium riders will be offered a shuttle to your hotel. If you're camping, then you're already home because you'll be staying at the Y, and we'll tell you what your grid number is in our campsite at the Y. If you are a standard rider who is not camping, you can pick up your gear bag and make your own way to wherever it is that you're staying that night. So just as a reminder, standard riders who are not camping need to make your own arrangements for Saturday night, whether that's at one of our host hotels, at an Airbnb, or at a friend's house. It's also your responsibility to get yourself to wherever you're staying and then back again in the morning. So if you don't want to ride your bike to your hotel, that's okay, because we're going to have ample secure bike parking at the Y, and then you can catch an Uber or such to your hotel. No worries. For dinner, you'll be on your own, but one of the fantastic things about the Y is that it's within walking distance of downtown Princeton, where there are a ton of great restaurants. The shuttle service that we're offering to premium riders will end for the evening at about 10 p.m. And for the folks who are camping, the indoor services at the Y, such as the showers, will also end at 10 p.m. So make sure you take advantage of those before that time. Okay, next slide, please. Let's move on to Sunday. Sunday morning, we'll offer a light breakfast starting at 7:30 at the Y. Some of you may be staying in hotels that offer a complimentary breakfast, but for those who aren't, we'll have a little something at the Y to get you started. Please be back at the Y with your gear bag by 8:30 at the latest. Again, you'll drop your gear bag off with our Gear and Camp Services team, and they will take your bag all the way to Philadelphia for you. At 8:45, that's our key time for the morning. 8:45, we'll have some opening announcements. And this is a chance for us to share some highlights of the upcoming route and explain a few logistical details that you need to know about. So for instance, the route will open on a staggered basis at 9 a.m. And we say on a staggered basis because we want to avoid overwhelming the narrow streets in Princeton. So you'll have about 5 hours to complete the 50-mile route on the second day. As on Saturday afternoon, the first half of day 2 features both an on-trail and an on-road route with an oasis midway where you can switch things up if you like. When you arrive at Penn Treaty Park in Philadelphia, a Finish Festival awaits. It's going to feature heavy hors d'oeuvres and entertainment. And at 2 p.m., we'll all enjoy a closing ceremony where you'll all get to celebrate your achievement. We also have a bonus loop, which you may have caught on the map that Daniel shared earlier, a bonus loop through Center City down to Schuylkill Banks, where you can check out some current and future Greenway projects. If you're a fast rider, you can check out that loop before the closing ceremony, or if you're a more leisurely rider, you can head out just after the ceremony to do the same. Now, for those folks who are taking the post-ride shuttle back to Liberty State Park, here's the plan. Anytime between noon and 3, you're going to head over to the Rivers Casino parking lot, which is a quick 5-minute walk from Penn Treaty Park. And you'll drop your bike off at our bike shipping truck. That truck is going to depart for Liberty State Park at 3 p.m. Meanwhile, you will hang out at the Finish Festival until 4 p.m. That's going to give our bike shipping truck time to get back to Liberty State Park and our staff time to unload your bikes, so that by the time you get back to the park and ride at about 5:30 p.m., your bike should be ready and waiting for you. All right, so that's the timeline for the day. Next slide, please. We've hinted at some of your travel options, so let's go into a little more detail about travel and all the different things we have for you. So this is a ride that starts in one place, it ends in another, and so we have just tons of different permutations to run through. So if you're coming from out of town, you may wish to stay at one of our host hotels in Jersey City. Both of them are a quick 10-minute bike ride from our opening ceremony. They're less than 2 miles away, so they're easy to get to, especially if you are traveling with all of your gear in a backpack for the weekend, which I do encourage just because it'll make it easier for you to get around. A reminder that for Saturday night, the 28th, if you are a standard rider and you're not confirmed to stay at our campsite, you do need to make your own sleeping arrangements. If you don't know whether you have a confirmed campsite, please email us to double check, because we'd really hate for somebody not to be fully ready to and know where they're staying on Saturday night. So details and reservation links for the hotels are in the pre-ride guide. And John, I think maybe you can pop a link, I hope, to the pre-ride guide in the comments, if you would. Next slide, please. Let's talk about getting you and your bike to the start. You've got a ton of options, as I say. If you're in Manhattan, you can take a PATH train on Saturday morning to Exchange Place, which is a 15-minute bike ride from Liberty State Park. If you want to get even closer, you can transfer at Exchange Place to the New Jersey Transit Light Rail, and you can take that to the Liberty State Park station, which is basically a mile away. For those folks who are planning to drive to the start, there is a park and ride. The Liberty State Park Park and Ride is just under a mile away from our ceremony site. It's a straight shot from there to the ceremony. And so what we encourage you to do if you're driving to the start is to check in first, unless you already did so on Friday, drop off your gear bag at the ceremony site, and then park your car for the weekend. There will be short-term parking at our ceremony site for you to just stop for a few minutes and drop off your gear. But if you leave your car there for the weekend, it will be towed. So you do have to move your car to the park and ride after you check in. And the parking for the weekend at the Liberty State Park Park and Ride is free to you. So one word of caution I do want to mention, the ferries from Manhattan. They're a great way to get across the river, but not on Saturday morning. They don't actually start running until later in the morning. If you rely on the ferry, you'll miss the opening ceremony. So instead, if you're coming over from Manhattan, stick with the PATH train. On Friday evening, if you're trying to get to your host hotel, you could take the ferry on Friday evening. Okay, that's for the New Yorkers and greater New York City. If you're coming from the Philadelphia area, I really encourage you to use our bike shipping and shuttle service. The way it's going to work is you'll drop off your bike at Rivers Casino at their parking lot right by our closing ceremony site. You'll drop off your bike on Friday afternoon. Then you'll come back to the same place Saturday morning at 5 a.m. to board the shuttle bus. You're welcome to park your car at the Rivers Casino over the weekend. When you arrive at Liberty State Park on Saturday morning, your bike is already going to be there smiling and happy to see you. So it's a really simple way to do this. And then, of course, at the end of the ride, you're going to end up right where your car is if you parked there. One thing I do want to note for both the pre and post-ride shuttles is that if you're taking the shuttle, you cannot bring your bike on the bus. You need to use the bike shipping option to get your bike north. So we've already talked about the post-ride shuttle, so I won't repeat myself there. I will just note that if you've parked your car at Liberty State Park Park and Ride for the weekend, when you get back on Sunday evening, the shuttle and the bike shipping are going to return you to the same parking lot where your car is parked. So again, keeping it simple. Okay, next slide, please. So one of the reasons you probably logged in tonight was to get some pro tips on how to make your weekend run more smoothly. Here's my big pro tip. Turn in all the forms that are included in your pre-ride guide. That's the medical form, the medical waiver, a copy of your COVID vaccination card, and the policies and protocols sheet. Note that you don't have to return the bicycle inspection sheet, which is the last page of the pre-ride guide. We just included that for your own information. But these other 4 things you do need to send to us. If you send them to us before July 26th, you still have a month to do it. Send them to us before July 26th. You'll save yourself time and headaches during the actual check-in at the beginning of the event. Okay, one last thing for me, and that is about volunteers. If you are not a cyclist, or if you are but you have a friend or a partner who isn't a cyclist, but they still want to be part of this amazing event, and who wouldn't be really? We'd love to have you as a volunteer or a crew member on the event. Here are the options. Our crew members support the ride for the full 2 days from Jersey City and New York City all the way to Philadelphia. You'll be assigned a specific role. You might be on an Oasis team, you might be on our gear and camp services team, you might be on a sweep team, but you'll be on that role for the entire weekend. It's a great way to see the whole ride, work hard, meet amazing people, and never have to take a single pedal stroke. We also have single day volunteers who help for a few hours at a specific location. We particularly need volunteers at the opening ceremony in Jersey City, in Princeton, Saturday afternoon and Sunday morning, and again in Philadelphia for the closing ceremony. For more information on any of these roles, you can visit greenway.org/ridevols. You can also email us with any questions. Okay, I am done. So next up, we're going to talk fundraising.
All right, thanks, Eric. So a little bit about the fundraising. There's a lot more details than I'm going to go over, but just some of the high-level major points. So if folks haven't already registered, by the way, it is $150 for standard registration, and then the commitment is to raise $600 for standard, and then again $250 for premium registration with a commitment of 1,000. I believe that's right, or 1,200. Sorry. 50% of that is due by July 9th. That is a major deadline. And then August 15th, all of that is due. We have lots of help, though. We have lots of support, and we want to get into that in the next slides. But we also want to thank everyone for over 100,000 already raised. There are people waiting to support you, so please reach out to us. We have lots of ideas. There are different ways you can get folks. Friends, family are great for this. Coworkers to sponsor your ride, sponsor different miles. Utilize some Facebook fundraisers, which we've already had some great success with. Employer matches, a lot of different companies provide this. Imagine that you'll be healthier and more excited to work, so more productive. The employer can't say no to matching such a thing. Yard sales, virtual yard sales, writing letters to folks, make it personal. This is a really important mission, and we hope it's really important to you. And I think if you can communicate that to your loved ones, they will see that, and the fundraising will just be a part of that love. And there's also incentives. Going beyond the fundraising commitments, we have lots of merchandise. We have socks, we have jerseys, we have hats, starting at the $750 level, going above. But for more information on all of this, our office manager, Cheryl Ann Welsh, is standing by. Answer any questions that you might have about fundraising. She has lots of experience in this. She's guided a lot of folks already so far. Please reach out. It's really doable, and especially if you're on a team, working together, collaborating with the folks that care about this mission, we're going to get you there, and you can do it. And of course, please tag us as you go on your journey of fundraising, as well as the ride and your training. We are on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, hashtag the East Coast Greenway, hashtag New York NYC-to-PHL ride. We're trying to collectively promote this growing community of folks that are looking to ride and connect these trails across the East Coast, as well as just New York to Philly. And I believe we've got also an exciting opportunity. So if you register before 7 p.m. on Tuesday, tomorrow, you'll be entered into a drawing for 2 East Coast Greenway prize packs with lots and lots of goodies. Please go to greenway.org/NYC to Philly. Look us up, register, find out more information. We have lots of FAQs. I know there's a lot of questions we're going to get to, but there's also a lot of information there. So I think we should probably jump in. If that's the next slide. Yes. And we have a team of experts who know it better than I do for some of these specific questions, but we can bring them on. All right. So there's a tall stack. I did want to speak to some of the unpaved trail questions. There's about 35 miles of the DNR and about 10 miles of the DNL. So both of those are natural surfaces. It is rideable by road bike. You will be going slower though. And if it rains leading up to the ride or on the days of the ride, you will definitely be going slower. But again, this is a ride, not a race. We have allocated time to see the scenery. And if you need a SAG vehicle, if you need a support vehicle, you can jump in that. If you need to ride the road, we have an alternate route for that as well. So just want to give folks just some reassurance there.
There was a question about folks who do the bike shipping pre-ride. Where do you get your bike? The answer is your bike will be delivered to the opening ceremony site. It'll be right there when you arrive.
Question about,
oh,
go ahead.
Go ahead, Daniel.
How many total riders? The cap is at 500. It is closing fast. I don't know the official numbers. Maybe Blake has an idea of what's the demand. Where are we at?
Register sooner than later. That's what I would tell you.
Okay.
I would have to go scroll, but we are over 400.
Lots
Hi.
of riders.
So I wanted to make a clarification. Daniel talked about if you're a premium rider or a standard rider, how much you need to fundraise. It also depends, of course, if you had registered prior to 2021. So if you're a standard rider, you're responsible for a minimum of 500. Of course, we'd like you to do more. If you registered as a standard rider after or as of 2021, it is $600. The same is for premium. Prior to 2021, it's $1,000 and $1,200 if you registered in 2021. It's a small difference, but I think everyone can get to those levels.
Thank you, Sherilyn. Sorry about that.
I would like to add to Eric's pro tips about getting your forms in on time. Yes, absolutely. That will make the difference between having a nice, relaxing morning, eating your breakfast and taking in the views, or spending your morning going from one line to the next. So yes, please get those in. My pro tip, having done many events like this as a participant as well as a producer, is for this event particularly, pack in a backpack. If you're going to be biking from the hotel to the start and from Princeton to your hotel and back, backpack just makes your world much easier. If your bag is solid black, tie something bright on it, put a big bright piece of duct tape on it. When you get to the Princeton Y and to the end to pick up your bags, there will be an endless sea of solid black bags and suitcases, and then a small little patch of ones that are not. So put something bright on there and you'll save yourself a lot of frustration when you really just want out of that nasty chamois at the end of the day.
And speaking of bags, could you speak, Blake, to the bag question from Susie?
If I had my
Like
glasses
we can read it off to you too, though.
I can take this question. The question is, how are bags being collected, dropped off, and delivered to hotels, and then at the finish? So we have a crew. I talked about our amazing crew. We have a crew team whose entire job is gear. For the whole weekend, they are taking care of your gear. And so you will drop your bag off at Liberty State Park when you arrive. It will be at the Princeton Y when you get there at the end of the day. If you are a premium rider, we will put it onto the shuttle and take you to your hotel, and then it'll come back again the next morning and you'll just drop your bag off in Princeton. If you are a standard rider, you are responsible for getting your bag from the Princeton Y to wherever you're staying and back again in the morning. So our bag checkpoints are Liberty State Park, the Princeton Y, and basically Rivers Casino, the closing ceremony site.
Eric, there's a lot of questions about the route. You can go ahead and answer the weather first. But after that, a lot of people are asking about cue sheets and being able to see the route beforehand. But first, what if the weather's bad?
Sure, we can talk about both of those things. If the weather, so it depends on how bad is. If it is raining, the event will go on rain or shine. And there's, you should plan to ride in rain. You should sort of bring appropriate clothing just in case, especially if the forecast forecast looks like it might. If there is severe weather, which I define as electrical storms, very high wind, sleet, snow in August, anything like that, we would close the route down. What typically happens in August when there's severe weather is that it's a front coming through, and you'll have severe weather that may only last for 20 or 30 minutes. So what we'll do in a situation like that is ask folks to sort of huddle at an oasis, assuming that you were at one or we can get you to one. Huddle at an oasis and let it pass over, and then we'll reopen the route and let you go. If we have to transport everybody to the end point of the day, we will. But we would only do that in the case of severe weather that isn't passing. In terms of the queues, I believe actually it's someone who's not on screen. It's John Martin, who probably has the answer to this, but I don't know if you can put yourself on screen, John, but I believe the answer is that queues will be released in an electronic fashion ahead of time. We will have print versions available at the beginning of each day as well. So if you're the kind of person like me who just wants to have it in your pocket, we will have those available.
Another question came in about the heat too. So we've been having a lot of heat out west. That obviously could come east, or already is coming east. How about if it's very, very, very hot?
I mean, if we had truly extreme weather, that would qualify. If the National Weather Service is issuing, danger, stay out of the outdoors at all costs, we would treat that the same as an electrical storm or anything like that. For weather like we've had, for instance, today, we had a day where I am in Pennsylvania, it was 95 degrees, the heat index was 100. You get weather like that sometimes in August, and in a case like that, the event would go on. We'll have plenty of water. The oases are spaced every 12 to 15 miles. You absolutely should have 2 water bottles on your person, or a Camelback or something like that, to make sure you stay hydrated. But we'll have plenty of water and Gatorade as well.
And I wanted to add one more note about the route. You can go to map.greenway.org right now and see a very close version. It won't be the exact route that we'll ride, but because it's along the East Coast Greenway, we're basically going to shadow, not be on the East Coast Greenway the whole time from New York to Philly. So you can actually enter in your origin. You can say Liberty State Park at map.greenway.org and final destination, Penn Treaty Park, Philadelphia. That will give you a very good idea of what it looks like, especially if you cross-check it with Google Street Maps. Look at what it looks like on the ground, and that's a really great way to kind of figure out what the conditions look like in person. See if we've got some others popping in here. Elevation is quite flat, thankfully. There are a couple of bridges. The Bayonne Bridge in particular has a stretch where it gets a little steeper, but I don't think we go over maybe 500 feet the whole time. Looking at some of those routes, Bruce?
Yeah, I would say, it's essentially flat. Having said that, nothing's ever flat, right? So the bridges are what they are, and that's actually, I would guess, that's probably the bulk of the elevation, is those 2 bridges. Now, GPS is funny sometimes. It will show, even if you're going over a flat bridge, GPS might say, "Oh, look at the bottom of the river," and it will add that in, but you're actually not writing it. So if you GPS the whole thing, it would probably say, I don't know, Daniel, 400 vertical.
Probably.
I actually just looked it up on our maps online. It's 1,300 feet of climbing on day 1. That may include some of the rivers, though, as you were pointing out. And
I think that's the bridges and the rivers. Yeah.
And it's a little under 800 feet of climbing on day 2.
Okay.
But a net elevation drop on day 2 because you're ending up right on the banks of the Delaware.
And I want to mention there's just a ton of questions, and we are recording all of this. We will have the questions on YouTube and Facebook, and we will try to answer every single one. If somehow we miss something, please reach out to us at the email that's listed on the page. If someone knows it off the top of their head, I think it's NYC-to-PHL@greenway.org. Correct me if I'm wrong. Okay. All right. More questions? How are the bikes transported, and are they protected during transport? Good question.
That's a great question. We work with a professional shipping company that Global Impact has been working with for almost 20 years. They're a professional trucking company. They are wrapped individually in moving blankets. I can tell you we've never had more than a very minor scratch on a bike in almost 20 years of having them moved for events. They are insured for up to $500. Obviously, if you have a fancy bike, that doesn't cover the whole thing, but it is a measure of the fact that they're planning to take care of your bike. They do a great job.
What about us who are renting a bike? Where do we get the bike?
Unlimited Biking is the company that is renting the bikes on our behalf for the event. And they are going to be at Liberty State Park at the opening ceremony site when you arrive. You just have to show up to check in, and they'll have a little area in the parking lot. And they will be at the finish in Philadelphia at the Finish Festival.
I believe I saw a question about communications during the ride. If there is severe weather that's happening during the ride, is there a way to get in touch with the ride managers or hear from them?
Yeah, that's a great question. One of the things we haven't actually talked about is like what happens if you get lost and all of that. So we run a command center called dispatch throughout the ride. One of the things you'll get when you check in is a wristband that will have a phone number on it. And you can call into dispatch if you're having an issue, if you get lost and you don't know how to get back on the route, if you need a sweep to come pick you up. So our command center is also in constant contact with our crew along the road. And so between our Oasis teams and our sweep teams that are going up and down the route, we have the whole route pretty well monitored the whole time. And so if something is coming down the pike weather-wise, we will alert the crew first, and they will start coming along. We have had situations, it's pretty rare, we have had situations where we've seen a cell coming through, and our sweep vehicles in bright blazing sunlight have plucked riders off the road, which can be a little bit disconcerting. But we only do that when we know that within the next 20 or 30 minutes, you're about to get dumped on. And so if that happens, no, we've been keeping an eye out for you.
Nice. What if I get a flat tire? Will anyone be there to help me? I've actually never changed a bike tire.
That's a great question. But the first thing I would say is you've got 2 months before the road. I would really encourage you to learn how to change a tire. It's a really good thing to know just in general in life. But beyond that, yes, there will be folks. For one thing, there's going to be several hundred other riders, many of whom know how to change a tire, and just law of averages. I'm not trying to be snarky, but law of averages, the first person to come upon you is probably going to be another rider. And because part of what we're trying to do that over the course of the weekend of this event is build community, hopefully they'll be able to stop and help you out. We will have sweep vehicles going up and down the route who will either be able to help you with the flat tire or take you to the next Oasis, where we will have bike techs who will be able to change the tire for you. So it sort of depends on where you are when it happens, whether you have a spare tube on you. The short answer is you should have a spare tube, that kind of thing. One thing I should point out on this note is many of you probably have heard that there's been a run on bikes during the pandemic, that bike shops are just out of them. They're also running low on bike tubes. So in preparation for the event, you still got a couple of months. I would go out and make sure you have a couple of spare tubes to bring with you on the event. Our bike techs will have some supply, but there's only so much they can carry with them. And particularly if you have a funky bike with a funky tube, they may not have the tight tube.
At least two, because what you can do is in your hotel at night, patch the bad ones.
Yep. Absolutely. Absolutely.
And also one thing to do at the start, inflate your tires every morning before you go out to ride, and it'll decrease your odds of getting a flat by about 99%. So inflate those tires every morning, and maybe you'll never need to learn how to fix a flat, but still learn.
And I did see some questions about getting to the ride itself, getting to Liberty State Park. Please email us and let us know that you're interested in information on that, because we do have info on the FAQs, but if you're coming from a certain area where other people are asking for the same information, we can help coordinate that. That's what the East Coast Greenway Alliance coordinators are here for, and perhaps organize a bike ride to the ride. There's definitely better ways and worse ways to get there, and hopefully we can point you to those. So please reach out to us. See if John is going to pop some in, man behind the curtain. Did have some questions about training plans. I don't know if we had any information on that, Eric or Cheryl Ann.
I can take it if no one else wants it.
Oh, Blake.
I was just going to throw it to you, Blake. Great.
Right on. So if you're just getting started training, that's fine. You have time to build up. Your first step is to literally go see how far you can ride comfortably, meaning go out for a ride until you feel like you've done something. You could ride more. You don't want to ride more. And that'll be your starting point. Do not ride until you're like, that'll be your starting point. So let's say that is 25 miles. Great. Open up your smartphone, wherever you keep your normal schedule. About a week, another week, 2 weeks out, schedule in a 30, a couple weeks after that, a 35 or 40, a couple weeks after that, a 45 or 50. So you're going to gradually build up in 5 to 10 mile increments. Ideally, you would get in about a 65 to 70 mile ride a couple weeks before the ride. If you don't get there, no worries, because the route is fully supported. And ideally, once or twice, you'll get in back-to-back long rides since you're doing a 2-day ride. So if you go out for 45 on Saturday, go out for 20, 25, 30 on a Sunday, see how your body recovers. You'll feel a little different that second day, but you'll start to feel normal again in a few miles. And then also, in a perfect world, you'd be getting in short rides during the week too. That can be bike commuting, that can be a spin class, that could really be about anything, because that's going to build your base fitness. So build up gradually. Try to get up to a 70-ish mile ride. If you don't, no worries, and you're there.
All right, I'm scrolling back through trying to get the ones we missed.
While you're looking, that 70-ish mile ride that you get to, try to do that about 10 days before the event so your body resets. I think that's important. The last thing you want to do is come to the event and being dead tired, right?
Exactly. Yep.
I believe there's some questions about the SAG, the support vehicle that's going to pick folks up if they're going too slow. How long will they watch for it was the question.
So that's actually a really good question. So every Oasis has a designated closing time, and the closing time is set to ensure that if you are out of that Oasis and on your way before the closing time, you are on schedule to finish the day under your own steam. And so that's great. If you arrive at an Oasis and it is approaching the closing time, you will hear somebody, it might actually be Jesse, calling out, "This Oasis is closing in 5 minutes, in 2 minutes, whatever it is." That's your cue to get back on your bike, assuming you're planning to ride out, and keep going. And when they tell you the Oasis is closing, that means get back on your bike and ride, or we're putting you in a sweep bag. If you have not gotten to the Oasis and the Oasis time has closed, that's fine, because we're tracking where everybody is. The Oasis crew team will stay on site. They'll still have water and Gatorade and snacks for you. The bathrooms will still be there when you get there. However, once you've had an opportunity to avail yourself of all of that, they will pop you into a sweep van and your bike, take you forward one oasis to the next one to catch you up to everybody else. And then at that point, you'll have the option of getting out and riding, or perhaps it's nice and air conditioned in the sweep van and you want to stay there. That's up to you.
We are here for you. So I see it is just over 7 o'clock. We still have comments coming in, some questions. We will answer those in the chats of Facebook and YouTube. But again, if for whatever reason somehow it doesn't get back to you in time or you don't see it, please email us again, NYC-to-PHL@greenway.org. We want to help you get prepared so you don't have these questions the day of, as early as you can. Let us know what's going on, what's on your mind. Anything else from other folks on our team? All right. Well, thank you all for joining. Thank you, Eric, for presenting. Thank you, team, for putting this together, and continue raising funds. So excited to see everybody out there at Liberty State Park. Can't wait, and we'll be in touch in the meantime. All right. Bye, all.